Recently, we talked on the podcast about the potential of 2022 being kind of a down year for games. And a lot of that has to do with some games, big titles, getting delayed out of the year. I mean, we see like Starfield, Redfall, Breath of the Wild 2. There were some notable delays there. But it's going to come down to obviously what kind of games you like and what's on the release calendar going forward. However, this past week or so, we had a couple of titles get confirmed for this year that I've noticed has brought a lot of excitement into gaming, and it makes sense because two of these titles, well, have the potential based on their history of being right there alongside of Elden Ring at the end of the year for Game of the Year discussion. And we're going to go over how 2022 to me, especially for Nintendo and Sony, have completely flipped going into the back half. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. First of all, I mentioned Nintendo and Sony. If you're an Xbox owner, Xbox fan, yeah, the Starfield and the Redfall delay certainly hurts. I think next year, 2023, is when things are going to get on track for Microsoft. And once they do, with the number of studios they have, and they can get them on a consistent or somewhat consistent release schedule, it's going to be pretty good for output overall. But I've been saying 2023 is the year. I'm sticking to that. And hey, at least Starfield and Redfall are coming out next year, we believe. So again, I guess some of the titles you're going to hear about in this video are third party that will be on the Xbox. So it's not like a complete like lost cause of a year or something for Microsoft with the Xbox platform. Just technically from Microsoft, like first party studio. I mean, there's like Pentiment, but I get it. Starfield getting pushed, yeah. But let's talk about Nintendo and Sony, as they have had a pretty good start to 2022, and it looks like they're going to have a pretty strong ending. Let's look at Nintendo first, though. I mean, next week, if we just look at the games still left for 2022 with the Switch, Live Alive, that's coming up pretty soon, right? And then right after that, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, two big-time JRPGs, Live Alive being a completely unexpected, out-of-left-field announcement when that was revealed, but exciting to see. And then Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which we know the history of Monolith Soft. When they put out a big-time Xenoblade Chronicles game, it's going to be something special. It's going to be a pretty long game, I'm sure, as well. But like preview builds have been out there for a while, so I expect reviewers to show up saying they spent 80 to 100 hours playing through this JRPG. So that'll be fun. Then we go into September with Splatoon 3. So technically, if you look at August, there's nothing really there for Nintendo right now, but Xenoblade Chronicles 3 comes out July 29th, so it's already almost into August as it is, but hey, maybe they drop Advance Wars in there. Why not? It's got to come out eventually. But then you move into October, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, a game that I think is looking really good. It looks better every time they show it. Really enjoyed Kingdom Battle. I actually fired it up again the other day. It's still an awesome title. It still looks really good. I completely recommend picking up that title. Then we have the big one, Bayonetta 3. That is out in October. And then we have Harvestella. That's in November. It's just going to the Switch from what I've seen. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, another big-time title. One that will at least sell really, really well for Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. And it sounds like there's quite a bit going on with this game, more so than I thought, with a lot of the leaks getting out there explaining some of the gimmicks and different parts to the game. I'm curious how they're going to present some of this stuff in, I assume, a Pokemon Presents ahead of its launch. And then to round out the year, we have Dragon Quest Treasure. I do want to come back to Bayonetta 3, but looking up and down the list here of non-Switch exclusive games, some of these being kind of older, and were shown in that third-party direct, Persona 5, Royal, Nier Automata, No Man's Sky, Digimon Survive, which the thing with Digimon Survive that's so tough is that it's out the same day as Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and it's like, wow, that's you got to pick then, right? And Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is going to suck up quite a bit of time. I kind of think Digimon Survive will be a longer game as well, but like, I mean, I have to go with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to start, so I will come back to Digimon Survive at some point. And then who knows, maybe Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core makes it out this year. The fact that they said winter, though, makes me believe it's like a January or February 2023 release. Now, the interesting thing about Bayonetta 3, there was a lot of discussion around if that game would actually come out this year. And I believe this game coming out is completely shifting a lot of people's views on 2022 with Nintendo. And some of the people I've talked to, like Sean, for example, is excited for Bayonetta 3. He was the one who brought up the topic that this is like a down year for gaming. And I guess if you look at it, like Pokemon, Harvestella, Splatoon, Xenoblade, I don't think these are games that are like up his alley. But then like Bayonetta 3, which, I mean, from the trailer they showed recently, I mean, it looks really good. It's not going to sell 10 million copies, 5 million copies, 3 million copies. It'll do better than the other Bayonettas, I would assume. But it's not like a big-time seller. But something that Bayonetta has done consistently, well, at least the last 2 releases, it scores high, like in terms of Metacritic reviews. I know Metacritic's not like the be-all, end-all, but let's face it, when we get to the end of the year and there's like the Game Awards celebration and talk, usually we go to Metacritic and we look at the highest rated games and we're like, all right, let's start from the top and work our way down. I have a strong feeling that Bayonetta 3 will probably score in the 90s. Bayonetta 2 was a 92. The first one was like was a 90. So based on what they've shown with Bayonetta 3 so far, it looks way more ambitious than the second one. And it was also in development for like almost 5 years or something. There's a lot of expectation around Bayonetta 3. And if it shows up and lives up to them, yeah, there's a good chance that's going to be sitting up there alongside of Elden Ring, Horizon, and probably God of War for Game of the Year. I mean, when Bayonetta 2 came out, it was nominated and actually lost to Dragon Age Inquisition. And then we move over to Sony, who had a pretty good start to 2022. They had like Horizon Forbidden West, and then they had Gran Turismo 7, which I know there's a lot of controversy around Gran Turismo, but if you look at just the game itself, like the gameplay, it's good. It's just a good game. But for like Sony's first party, those are 2 big titles to get out there. In September, they have their big remake, that being Last of Us Part 1, which has seen its fair share of controversy already. The game's not even out, and the $70 price tag with no multiplayer, and do we really need it, and all these different things. I mean, it's like one of the best games ever made, according to a lot of people. And Naughty Dog even brought it in-house away from another studio that was working on it so they could make sure it was polished to a certain degree and high-quality PlayStation Studios and all this stuff. So I really like the first Last of Us game. I think it is a phenomenal title. So yes, I'll be checking this one out, and I'm sure it will be a really good experience. But we'll see how things hold up compared to even the remaster with Last of Us Part 1 on the PlayStation 5. It's just kind of tough because it is, yeah, technically the 3rd time we've had this game released in like the last 9 years. And then we do have, of course, God of War, which was confirmed. But, I mean, next week we have Stray. That's coming out. And Valkyrie Elysium, I keep looking at this, and when they first showed it off, I was like, I guess it's could be good. But then they showed more of it, and I'm like, all right, this is looking a lot better now. And it's out in September. So that'll be one I'm definitely picking up and checking out there. But obviously, all eyes were on God of War Ragnarok, and if it would make it out for 2022. Seemed like they cut it pretty close. Sony doesn't usually wait into November for their big first-party releases, but in this case, they probably had to. It was, I think it was close to making its way into 2023, but of course, that seems to be because this game is going to be massive. They are, of course, looking for the big review scores. The fact that all of a sudden we have God of War Ragnarok confirmed for 2022 and Bayonetta 3, again, 2 games that were being questioned for coming out this year, all of a sudden I think things are really shifting when it comes to the excitement for the back half of this year. If we look at games that aren't necessarily exclusive to the PlayStation 5 or anything, we have the Callisto Protocol, which looks awesome, especially for Dead Space fans. This clearly would be like the spiritual successor to that series with Glenn Schofield running things there. But the over-the-top violence, the atmosphere that they were building up there with the gameplay trailer they showed off, it's definitely a good one to be looking out for if you're a horror fan. Star Ocean: The Divine Force is a game that I really want to be good. Like, I want one of these Star Oceans to just catch on. It comes up and it's like, okay, this is it. They figured it out. Tri-Ace, they knocked it out of the park with Star Ocean game. And by knocked it out of the park for Star Ocean after what we had previously, Let's just get like a low 80s. That's kind of where we are. Marvel's Midnight Suns, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, of course. All three of those titles are in October. I'm actually looking at October now, and I'm realizing it's just an extremely packed month across the board. Hogwarts Legacy, we're still waiting for a release date on that. Sonic Frontiers, still waiting for a release date on that, which is, they've said it's coming out this year, but well, it's the middle of July, so they might want to get on that one. And we also have Soul Hackers 2, and one that I think has kind of fallen under the radar, but I've been looking at the gameplay more and more, and there's a pretty extended look at it online, and that's Evil West, which I saw people mention it on Twitter, and I went ahead and took a look at some of the gameplay for it, and it actually looks pretty interesting. It has like that Western vibe to it, but you're a vampire hunter as well. There's some supernatural stuff thrown in there, and visually, I think it looks pretty good. So that's one that I'm looking forward to. It's out in September, so thankfully it's now in October when things are just completely packed. But as I've mentioned all this stuff, there are other games that I haven't brought in here that are just working to pack like the last 4 months of this year. So while we had a lot of talk recently about this maybe being a down year for 2022, I'm starting to have a harder and harder time seeing that with all of the games to get excited for. But I guess we have to go to the source and see if Bayonetta 3 or even God of War maybe changed their mind.
Yo.
How do you feel about the second half of 2022 now?
It's starting to shape up a lot better now that we're getting release dates for things. Obviously Bayonetta 3 and God of War Ragnarok both getting concrete release dates and all that stuff. I think that's good for gaming. Those two games are definitely something that appeal to, that hardcore gamer crowd more so than, kind of what we've seen thus far. Especially from Nintendo on their side of things for 2022. So it looks better now.
Okay. Would you say you've flipped a bit on 2022?
No, because the first half of the year, what I said still stands. I feel it still was kind of slow rolling out, and a lot of this, a lot of these things were kind of boiled down to the companies and their reluctance to tell us, when these games were actually going to come out. It seems kind of like maybe they don't even know themselves because there's some stuff going on, back end wise and development wise. But, my whole thing was it's not necessarily a bad year. It was just kind of boring. There wasn't really anything super crazy to talk about, and you could look at, any YouTuber who does video games, their analytics and stuff, like people just seem a little bit disinterested in video games, at least in the first half of the year, because there wasn't really that surprise. Even with Bayonetta 3, you could say, okay, well, that wasn't really a surprise. We already knew that game existed. We saw a trailer, and you would be correct. But compare that trailer that we saw, the first initial trailer, to the trailer that we got for the release date. It's night and day. Like it actually shows the game instead of one small contained element of the game. It actually shows you, the new characters and stuff in it. So, things like that could definitely make things more interesting. You expect it to just be sort of by the books or whatever, the status quo, but there is that element of mystery. And I think God of War Ragnarok, it has some of that too, to an extent, because really we haven't, we got that one trailer. Obviously they're probably going to do a state of play to really show what's changed with it. But, events like that definitely pique the interest and make things more exciting.
Do you feel more excited for the second half with these two games confirmed?
Yeah, I think it looks a lot better. Let's just keep it a buck. Like when you look at Nintendo's first half of the year, pretty much all those games had, that sort of classic Nintendo style. They're more for everyone. They're, whether it's a 80-year-old or an 8-year-old, someone can find enjoyment with the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm a man who also likes some variety sprinkled in, and I feel like a game like Bayonetta 3 is sort of that variety. It's the complete polar opposite of, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which was a great game, but still, it's a Kirby game, except they actually did it in 3D. So, it just comes down to what types of games you like. And, some people really enjoyed this year. And, like, that's cool. I completely understand why. But I think with stuff like Ragnarok getting a release date, Bayonetta 3 getting a release date, actually seeing Bayonetta 3 beyond just, a little snippet, and what they're going to probably show with God of War over the next month or so, it definitely makes things a lot more interesting.
Okay, so your interest has flipped a bit then.
Yes, I would say I'm definitely a bit more looking forward to what's coming out instead of just, messing with stuff in my backlog, because a lot of these games that have come out, the interest level, a game like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, like, once you run through that game, yeah, you can go back and try to complete everything, but it's like, you really don't have to. You play that game for 10 to 12 hours, you put it on the shelf. A game like Mario Strikers Battle League, the online is terrible, and that's supposed to be the whole crux of the game. So, it's something that you'll play for a little bit, and, I deleted it off my Switch. Now, you could say the same thing about a game like Bayonetta 3, but at least it's different comparative to what the Nintendo Switch usually offers in terms of single player experiences. And I'm sure there will be some replay value in that game, because there usually is a decent amount of replay value in Bayonetta games.
I'll be straight up with you. I just needed you to say that something flipped for you, so my keyword in the title made sense. Thank you.
Flipper. Yeah.
All right, well done. But with all that said, after the last month or so, I feel like excitement has picked up for the second half of 2022. And yeah, a lot of that has to do with Nintendo having their third-party showcase, as well as dropping release date for Bayonetta 3, and then Sony making sure God of War fits in. Sure, kind of at the last minute, but still making it happen. It just seems like things have gotten a lot more exciting for people online, kind of flipping around the idea that even the back half of 2022, after, say, Splatoon 3 releases, was going to be kind of boring. It's looking pretty exciting right now. But let me know what you guys think about 2022, specifically like the rest of the year, especially after the last month or so of different game announcements to fill out the year, and maybe some other surprise announcements that are still coming up here as we get closer towards that holiday season. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.